Hi, in this video we'll be continuing with the C# video tutorials. So we'll be going over using output parameters, so some examples for that and a lab. So we talked about output parameters in the notes. So an output parameter works like a reference parameter when you pass an argument into an output parameter. The output parameter becomes a reference to the argument that is passed into it. So once again, we've used output parameters, for example, I think in try parse. So the built-in try parse method in C# requires an output parameter. So you can just use it. It's nothing to, the way they use it, I'm not sure exactly why you would need to use output parameters. We'll do an example to show some reasons why you might. But sometimes I just kind of went, when learning C#, I kind of just went with that. That was just like the syntax, so you have to have that out keyword in some of the methods. But I guess you can create your own methods with the out keyword. So basically, so when you pass an argument into an output parameter, the output parameter becomes a reference to the argument that is passed into it. Anything that is done to the output parameter is actually done to the argument that it references. Output parameters are different from reference parameters in the following ways. An argument does not have to be set to a value before it is passed into an output parameter. For example, an uninitialized variable can be passed into an output parameter. A method that has an output parameter must set the output parameter to some value before it finishes executing. So in C# you declare an output parameter by writing the out keyword before the parameter variable's data type. For example, we could modify the set to 0 method in the following to make the val parameter an output parameter. So let's just start with that. Excuse me, so we can just have some notes down here, some code notes. Excuse me. So we can have, so for example, a private void set to 0. So set to 0, then here we just take an out int val, so it takes an out int val. Okay, so we have, for example, out int val, so here we could just set val to 0. So set to 0, we set something to 0. So a setter is something you probably have seen before, if you've coded before. So you can actually create these through like a right click and a button click where it'll generate getters and setters for you. You may have seen that. So setters and getters are used throughout code quite often, especially in C. Java uses them. So I guess C# you can use them, C++. They're pretty common. I'm not sure if Python really uses it, but you can still create them. You might be able to do it in PyCharm, I'm not sure. In some advanced IDEs you can create getters and setters automatically. So a setter takes a parameter and then sets the parameter to something. So in this case we're using the out keyword. I don't think I mentioned that, but it is a setter because it says set to 0. Usually you just take a variable, for example, so you just, instead of set to 0, you just call this set, and then whatever you're trying to set, for example, if you're trying to set the keyword, the variable val, then you'll just change this to set val like this. And you can generate that. So oppositely of set val, then there's get val. A get would just have a return statement, and the type would not be void, it would be the type of the val. So in this case, int, it'd be private int get val, and it would be like return val, or return this dot val. And set, a setter takes a parameter in this case and sets the val. So you can, when you call this, you could go, I want to set, when you call this in like a main method or something, you go set val, and then you say, okay, well I want to set an int val. So you say, I want to set val, I'm going to pass it in val. Then it'll set val to 0 in this case. You can set it to anything. Sometimes you can even take what, instead of this parameter here, you could say, okay, well I want to actually, what do you want to do? You want to take, it takes the val, and it takes another value that you can set it to, for example. So you could say, well it takes a int val to set or something. So let's say the val to set is 5, so when we pass in 5, then it sets val to 5 or something like that. So there's some proper ways. I've gone over this in Java for sure. You'll definitely see me doing these in the data structures videos. Because often, well, with data structures, you always need a getter and setter. You may need them other ways. But okay, I'm just kind of drifting off here. But that's what it is. I haven't talked about it before. So when you call a method that has an output parameter, you must also write the keyword out before the argument. So we can demonstrate that. For example, here we could have int val. We could just call it var. So int var, and then we could say set to 0 and pass in out var. Like that. So the first statement declares a var, or declares var as an uninitialized int variable. The second statement calls the set to 0 method, passing var into the output parameter. After the method call, the var variable is set to 0. So let's do a lab now. We're just going to kind of jump into a lab here at this point. So let's just use a drag and drop because it's going to take too long to set up all that stuff. But I showed you guys kind of how to use the drag and drop. Don't worry, we'll do a full app or two with the drag and drop, with the layout and all that, just to get you guys going with that too. Not right now, but so let me open this. I'm going to have to click add project references or something. This button at the top. It says project references are missing, so I'm using Rider. I always use JetBrains software instead of Visual Studio, it's just faster. The building I have an old computer from 2016, but it still works fine with code, so it's just not up. At some point I'd like to update my computer if I can, but it works fine. Like this has a okay graphics card. It can run like Skyrim on like low graphics. It's not too bad, but it still works. So yeah, I don't really play too many games. I used to. When I was in, like, actually went to campus school rather than just online school, but I used to play games with like friends or like buddies from home. We'd sesh on the mic and all that. Yeah, so I haven't really played games in a while. Kind of too old for that. Too old for games. Someone said, okay, how can you ever be too old for games? I don't know, I just get bored of them at some point. I usually just work out. I spend my time working out, lifting weights, doing MMA and all that. Okay, so let's just so let's actually add some stuff here. So we'll add a label, a list box, and a button. So we can try to reference some of these in code. Let's just start out with some stuff here. So toolbox, we'll click a label, add one here. If I can size that properly. Which it won't let me, okay. There we go. Okay, something like this. Then we have a list box. So let's just change this first. So click that tab. Here I'll change the name to just label. Excuse me. Okay, so we have I feel like that old professor that does that when they're teaching a class. Sorry about that. I used to smoke a lot of weed when I was in school, high school and university, and I get a lot of phlegm in my throat, so that happens a lot to me. Apologize about that. Okay, so we have, I actually haven't though since 2019. I quit because I was getting headaches. So I've been sober since 2019. I don't drink, so. But yeah, but it still happens if you ever smoked a lot of weed when you're growing up or something. When you continue on, you get a lot of phlegm coming down your throat still. I'm not sure why. Could be just the wear of the lungs from smoking or vaping or whatever. Or it could just be natural. Maybe it just happens to everyone. I'm not sure. But anyways, if you have, for example, so we'll change that auto size to true. Then we'll change the font to something like 36 or something. Okay, 36, so then we'll change, we could set the text and the font in the code. Let's do that. Let's change this to some random value. Let's just set it, so we call this label. So here in the constructor, I hope this doesn't mess the design editor up. Last time I think it did. Let's just, hopefully it doesn't, so let's just go with label. It's a reference or label here. It's a label, I was able to find it, so then we'll say label dot name points to, well I guess name is already set, but we could still name it label. We could say label dot font points to new font. So you could say new. Am I doing this correctly? Let me check my notes. I always get confused about font family. It's a little tricky in Java too. There's some kind of special syntax for it. Okay, so you have to say new font, and so new font, and then you have to reference label dot. I think it's a dot. Yeah, so you go label dot font dot, and again then font family. So there's a way to actually change the actual font, but this is just what you have to do for font size. If you're confused about this, you can check the docs. That'll help. So label dot font points to new font, label dot font family. One parameter is a size. I'm sure you could also pass in an actual font, like a type, like Times New Roman or something. Anyways, after that, what else are we trying to do here? So that's really it. It's not gonna come up completely. That should be fine. Gonna need a list box. The problem is we can't define a list box and then add it to the design window. The design window gets confused. It doesn't automatically update like XML. Okay, so anyways, at this point then we will create a list box then. Oh, sorry, forgot to set the text. The problem is that text isn't, I don't think it's going to update. So if you go label, what happened there? If you go label.text points to the countries of North America. Now, I don't think this is going to update. In fact, I think it started to glitch out. It did, I think. So we could actually just comment it out. Oh, the keyboard's getting messed up. Okay, so let's go for that. In the design window, we'll click the label. Hopefully didn't get confused. We'll change this to the countries. Whoops. Of North America. Place this on there like that. Okay. Then we could create a button here. Actually, no, we're gonna need a button and then a list box. One sec, actually, let me just get some water here. One sec. Alright, sorry about that. I left my water on far from my desk. Well, not even on my desk, but. Alright, so I had my water far away. Okay, so we got a list box now. So we'll just add a list box. I'm cooped up on my bed here and I had my water all the way across the room, so I just grabbed that. Okay, so we have a list box. Let's add one here, just something like that. That should be fine, something like that. We'll just have one button. Okay, so let's take the list box, change it to just list box. Camel cased. Font will change. We've changed this in the code, but it's not going to update on the design window. Okay, so let's go with like 20. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. That's fine, okay. List box, so that's fine. So we'll go with a button here. Just kind of make it bigger first. We'll go with just calling it. Actually, sorry, let's change this list box to countries list box. Excuse me. Okay, so then now we'll change this button to get countries button. Okay, so get countries button. I guess you can also have getters and setters within the GUI elements, so this gets something. Okay, so get countries button will change the auto size to true. We'll change the font size to something big. something big and beautiful. Then we'll have then we'll change this to get countries, so we'll just change that to get countries. Get countries. Okay, that should be fine. We don't need an exit button, so we have a label, countries list box, and get countries button. Okay. Now let's actually do the code for this. We could generate the event handler. Okay, this is a longer one. So what are we gonna do to start? Dialog box, okay. The get file name method gets a file name from the user and assigns it to the variable passed as an argument. There is no dialog box to this. I think I was supposed to add one to add a dialog box somewhere. Let me go back to these instructions here. Okay. Sorry. So okay, so start Visual Studio, which we're using Rider. Open the form. Add an open file dialog control to the form. Let's add that. We can do that in code. Okay. So don't worry, we'll be doing this in the full lab with when we do the layouts and all that. But let's just see if we can do some here because it's fun to code it. So we'll have we'll come down below there. Let me just pull up some line notes here just to make sure what the syntax is. So we have this is an open file. This isn't the. I'd had more. This is a save file dialog. Okay, I had another part of this code somewhere else in probably in one of my class folders. So let me just elaborate with this. Hopefully it works. Alright, so we're going to need a save. No, we're going for open file dialog. So open file dialog, open file dialog with a private, forgot, my bad. Private open file dialog if the capital button works. Okay, private open file dialog. We're going to need a name, open file dialog. Alright, that should work. Okay, then now we'll go here and say we want open file dialog points new open. Why the hell does that keyword, the capital shift button not working? Open file dialog points a new open file dialog, like that. Then we can say we want open file dialog. What the hell? Am I just pressing it too fast? Open file dialog dot title points to open file. Set the name here, so open file dialog dot name points to open file dialog. Is that not gonna let me change it? Okay, so there's no name property for that, I guess. Okay, so we'll just delete that then. Let me just get another sip of my water here. Don't worry, I brought it closer this time. Okay. Alright, so open, so now we've set the title. What else we need to do? That's that's pretty much about it. I think we actually have to add this to the control somehow. So we can go in the constructor here. Controls.add open file dialog. Okay, we added it. Okay, so back to where we were. So we've added an open file dialog control to the form. Okay, so now okay, we're gonna have to add using system.io here. The countries of, okay, what the hell was that? What's happening here? Label.text. Okay, yeah, so we didn't need to code that. Actually, we could have coded it, but we could just take this out. We could have actually just did that, but I just wanted to see how it was going to look. Okay. We're going to use a stream reader, that's why we need to use system.io. You have to add the system.io directive. Get file name. Okay, that's where we are now. Alright, so let's go with that. Might have to split this up into 2 parts actually, but for now we're okay. It's already half an hour here. Almost. So we'll go under the constructor here. I'll just remove that toolbox space. So private void get file name takes parameter out string selected file. We'll say if open file dialog dot show dialog points to dialog result.ok. Then we'll say selected file points to open file dot file name. Alright, then we'll say else. Selected file points to just something empty, like an empty string. Selected file points to an empty string, that should be it. Alright, so underneath that, then we'll have a private void. Actually, let me just change this song. It's not very good. Kind of boring. It's like that. I have some music if you're interested. It's in a playlist on my channel called Code Music. Different stuff in there. But there is a song here that's like kind of like it's like it's like the new generation of EDM. So back then we didn't have EDM. It was just called, like, everything was split up into different genres, like trance or electro or drum and bass or like hardstyle, techno. So originally techno was the first word, I think. And they had techno and drum and bass, so those were really old school. Then that kind of got branched out into trance and all that, and then EDM came out. Well, electronic music, then they started calling it EDM. That caught on. So yeah, so I got some trance music in there and different EDM stuff, whatever. If you're interested in that, I also have like some old school rap and hip hop, and I got some rock music in there too. So check that out if you're bored. If you need some coding music, or if you don't know about music at all, so maybe you'll find something in there. Alright, so private void get countries. Then here, this will take a string file name. File name, did I call? Okay, that's fine. So it changes my indentation here. Spacing, it spaces out the code automatically. I don't know how to turn that off. So here we have private void get countries takes a string file name. Then we'll have a try block, which automatically created some stuff. So I'll just Control Z that. So here we'll have a string country name. Then we'll have a stream reader input file. Then we'll say input file points to file.openText. Pass in file name. And we'll say countries list box dot items dot clear. Then we'll say while not input file dot end of stream. Well, the stream isn't ended basically. Then we'll say country name points to input file dot read line. Then we'll say country is list box dot items dot add country name. Okay, that should be inside the while loop. Outside the while loop, then we'll close the stream, I think. Input file dot close. Then we'll say catch below the try block. We'll say catch exception EX. And we'll say message box dot show EX dot message. And that's it. Okay, so actually we're gonna have a get countries button click. So we can do that somewhere here. I have a button here. And it's called get countries button, okay. So we can generate that event handler in code, I think. So you can should be able to access that here. So we could say get countries button. There you go. Plus equals new event handler. Why isn't it accessing this? Get. Unless I just spelled it wrong, so it should work. There we go, something was spelled wrong. So get countries button plus equals new event handler. It's hard, it's a little bit tricky to remember this line, for me at least. So plus equals new event handler. So then we'll have, it's actually not too bad. So then we'll have here get countries. We have to call get countries button. Get countries button. Did we say dot click? No, we didn't. Okay, so get countries button dot click. What event you want to handle, basically. So we go click, I think, and that's what it is, I think. And then so plus equals new event handler. Then we'll say here get countries button. This is where we name it. We go get countries button underscore click. Now I was trying to figure out what that is because it doesn't recognize that method name. So get countries button dot click plus equals new event handler. Then I think the name that you want, so then get countries button underscore click. Okay. Now we go under here and say private void get countries button underscore click takes parameter object sender comma event args e. That should be good. So that red line should have disappeared up there. Okay, yeah. So now it's recognizing it. Excuse me. Okay, so then now we'll have. What did I do? Click. Okay, I clicked something on my other notes computer. Apologize. Opened up Firefox by accident. Okay, so we have get countries button underscore click takes parameter object sender. I think there's a typo in these notes. Object sender should have a capital O, should it not? I swear it should be capital. Should be. Class name should always be capital. There's just a typo in my notes. Okay, so then anyways we'll just go with it. If something's wrong with it, we'll change it. So string file name, local string to hold the file name. Well, then here we'll call it get file name, then out file name. Then here we'll say get countries, pass in file name. That's it. I think I'm supposed to have a file with countries in it. Let me just run this then. It might not be countries, let's just go with some random text file, whatever I have. Something happened, okay. What line is that? 25. Okay, maybe it doesn't need this line. Let's try that. File dialog's opening up. Okay, cool, so it works partly. So let me just open up a random text file. C# file.txt. There we go. So this isn't. Whoops, what happened? Oh yeah, you guys can see this. Okay, so anyways, it works. So let me just talk about what's happening here. What is exactly the point of this? Okay, so we have constructor here sets up our controls, get file name, selected file. Okay, so it gets a selected file. Selected file points to the output file dialog.file name property. So the selected file is the selected file. Okay, so it gets us. So it's going to retrieve us a selected file here, file path. So private void get countries. So it reads from the file, adds them to the list box. Country name points to input file.read line. Okay, perfect. It's really just adding data to a list box. They're doing it with the out keyword. You don't need to use the out keyword. I don't really know. I still at this point don't really know why you would need it. There may be a case where you do, but that's the end of the tutorial. That's the end of the lab. So in the next lab, we'll be going over value returning methods. So thanks for watching, guys. If you guys like the video, you can like and subscribe to the channel for more programming and investing tutorials. I know you guys can't see the actual, because of my recorder, you can't see the actual app. OBS Studio, I could do it in OBS Studio, but I have to transfer the file type and all that. Basically, it's in whatever's in the design window. So it's like this. I click get countries. Well, you should be able to see this now. Get, like, not the full app, but the get countries button. When I click that, the dialog box pops up, open dialog box. It lets me select a file. I select a file. Then everything from the file gets populated in this list box, like a list of stuff, which is just like fruits in my case. And that's it. There's nothing crazy about this app that you really need to see. In that case, the Windows Recorder is better for quality. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you guys like the video, you can like and subscribe to support the channel. In the next video, we'll be going over value returning methods. So if you guys want to see more stuff like this, other languages, check it out. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.